And speaking of gay, I am a homosexual. I don't like to refer to myself as being gay or being a homosexual, though. I prefer queer or queerosexual, gayosexual, or phagosexual. I like to be as stupid and offensive as possible, even when referring to myself. I was a virgin until age 21. I held out for love. My favorite soda is Sundrop. Believe it or not, before Psychotropica, I actually did film, direct, edit, produce, and other things, a feature film, a horrible movie called Temptation. Well, you know, I'm a very white person. Very white. I listen to Barry Manilow, and I wear Hawaiian shirts in the wintertime. And yeah, so I'm very white, and Temptation was an urban teenage drama with a predominantly black cast. The cast was great. We got along well. They were very good people. I'd like to work with them again. Unfortunately, the script was what is commonly referred to as horrible, and despite our best attempts to make something good out of it, it was just steam pile crap. And while on that subject, while making Temptation, I had two rather interesting experiences happen to me. One was we had stayed up, well, I had stayed up 3 days, 72 hours, whatever you want to call it, in a row. Was very tired by the end of that third day, and the reason I didn't go to sleep because we had to film, 10 scenes in a row or whatever, and me being the cinematographer and the director, I had to continuously be there. So while the crew was asleep, I decided for the last scene that we had to do, I didn't like the lighting where we were filming at. We were filming in the kitchen of this apartment set type place we had rented. And so I moved the entire contents of the kitchen into the basement so as to control the lighting better. And the other experience during the making of Temptation was another time we had stayed up about 48 hours. And it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and we had to get this shot, and I wanted the sun to be rising behind these people dramatically, and I wanted the light, the dawn light to be coming over and be very dramatic. So I was rushing around unplugging lights and plugging in cameras and all of these things, and there was a fine morning mist on my hands and on the electrical cords. And I went to plug a couple things in, and there was this loud and I went, holy crap! And the power went out, and everyone was like, oh my god, what's going on? Are you alright? And I looked at my hands, and they were black. They were like covered in black. They were like, I dipped my hands in tar, and they were hard, and I was like, oh my god, I've horribly injured myself. But I kept my cool, and I was like, oh no, everything's fine. I went over the sink, and fortunately all of it washed off, and everything was fine, but scary electrocution. Don't play with the electricity with wet hands, children. I really, really, really like to eat. I love eating. Japanese food, Chinese food, Italian food. I love to cook, I love to eat, and I especially love fast food. Oh my god, I love to eat. Just, if I could eat all the time and not die, I would. The first movie I ever saw was A Nightmare on Elm Street. I saw it at age 1, and that probably explains why I'm so fucked up. The first movie I remember seeing in the theater was a double feature of A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, and Batman. I was 4. It was very nice. And on the subject of odd double features, the first truly horrendously awkward double feature I ever did was a combination of Muppet Treasure Island and Halloween 6. How you like them apples? And it's a tradition I've continued to this day. In fact, just recently I did Julie and Julia and G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. Next one I'm thinking about doing is Aliens in the Attic and A Perfect Getaway. So anytime you can see two movies that are like polar opposites, one right after the other, I suggest you do it. It's a lot of fun. One reason I don't do videos like this is I hate the natural sound of my voice. It annoys me. I don't know if it's annoying you, but it annoys me to hear it. So, just letting you know that. Two stories having to do with my queerness. One is the first time I realized for sure, I mean, I sort of knew since I was a baby that I liked men folk. But the first time I really knew was I was 10 and I watched The Blue Lagoon for the first time. And when I saw Christopher Atkins coming up out of the ocean in a loincloth all tan and dripping and wet and with the blonde hair and stuff, you know, let's just say I knew I was a meat and potatoes kind of guy if you get my drift. Anyways, the second story about my queerity is when I first learned what gay meant. Of course, I've always been very odd. I can't say I'm a Queenie Flancy kind of, you know, that kind of gay guy, because I'm not. I've just always been very odd, always dressed very oddly, and, you know, I still like explosions and climbing on shit and, you know, boy stuff. But, you know, I've just always been very odd. So people have called me a fag and gay for a long time. I just didn't know what it meant, except for, you know, fag being a British term for a cigarette. Thank you, absolutely fabulous. And that confused me, because I didn't understand why people would be calling me a cigarette and or a bundle of twigs. But anyways, I realized I had discovered what gay was whilst watching TV with my mother one day, who is an evil bitch, by the way. There's another fact for you. We were watching TV and a commercial came on, a Diet Coke commercial with Elton John and Miss Piggy singing about Diet Coke. And in that instant, the clouds parted and there was much clarity, and I turned to my mother and said, is that gay? Is that what gay is? Is that a fag? Is that what being gay is? And she goes, yes, honey, that's what it means to be gay. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I understand perfectly now. So, there you go. Here's a good one. This is a good one. I know, you know, I've told some embarrassing things on here. Most people, when they do these things, they don't really talk about embarrassing stuff, but I love talking about embarrassing stuff. I think it's funny as hell. When I was a child, we were kind of poor. Well, not poor, but, you know, not lower middle class, shall we say. And one year for Halloween, my father thought it would be very funny to do a homemade Halloween costume for me. So he got this brown foam that you would, it's just thick brown foam. I don't really know what you use it for packing stuff, I guess. And wrapped me in the foam and cut out a face hole and 2 armholes and told me to go lay in the front yard and pretend that I was a piece of dog poop. And that was my Halloween costume. I hated that at the time. I cried about it. But when I think back on it, that's like one of the funniest things that you could ever do in your entire life, be dog shit for Halloween. But, you know, after I cried about it long enough, he spray painted the Batman symbol on me and turned me into a Batman turd. So, gotta love that. That's the sort of thing that only happens in the South, in the United States. Yeah. I really love double entendres and horrible, bad sexual related dialogue. In fact, I have a phrase that I like to use often, which is, I'm gonna hit the sack and then go to bed. You think on that one. My favorite car is the 1986 Ferrari Testarossa. Some people say I have an uncanny resemblance to Bruce Campbell, both be it in the chin department and the hair department and my general attitude department. And while I take it as a compliment, I find it kind of funny because the Evil Dead movies are not something I really was exposed to early. I mean, I've watched horror movies all my life, but I didn't see the Evil Dead movies until I was in my mid-teenage years. But I've always just sort of looked, you know, like this, of course, and acted like this, and wore Hawaiian shirts like Bruce does. And, in fact, as far as the chin goes, I like to say that I got my mother's chin on top of my father's chin. So, there we go. Bruce is my actual father, and that pleases me.